Hi, my name is Shira Rubinoff. I'm here with Jayan Tharayil, Senior Director, GM Risk as a Service at PayPal. Jayan, pleasure to be with you here today.
Thanks for having me, Shira.
Certainly, pleasure. So today we're going to talk about digital transformation and the importance of digital agility within an organization. So we talk about organizations and they have the understanding and the need for full digital transformation within their organizations as budgets and resources are limited. And certainly that's a problem that many CISOs, if not all, face when they're given a budget and there's tons of things that they need to look at, plenty of areas to spend their money, and they have to understand where their dollars are spent within the organization. We have to incentivize management to work together across both operations and security because they can't be incentivized to do different things or else business will stop or security won't be managed appropriately. So, Jayan, now that companies are realizing the need for digital transformation across organizations for both better security and functionality, can you please highlight these two important areas of digital transformation and why it is so critical for organizations to do so?
Yeah, happy to get into it. So, look, it's not a surprise that the last 2 to 3 years have forced businesses to speed up their digital transformation journey. A lot of this is was triggered by a surge in digital payments during COVID. Let's take payments, for example. Consumers are no longer happy with just one option of payment, say credit or debit card. They are looking for things like digital wallets, buy now, pay later, a whole bunch of alternative payment methods, local payment methods, Apple Pay, Google Pay, what have you. Um, the digital transformation, while we've welcomed it as the payments industry, this is also caused an increase in the likelihood of risk and fraud attacks on online transactions. Coincidentally, we just released a study about the true cost of online fraud with the Ponemon Institute that sort of focused exactly on this topic. Over half the respondents in their study said they were significantly concerned about having an online fraud attack or fraud incident as a result of insecure digital transformation. The good news is, we do have a lot of solutions that have kept pace with this spurt in payments and solutions that are backed by automation, artificial intelligence to help detect and mitigate these risk and fraud issues.
Well, that's very important, and it's very, very good to hear that you're expressing it across all the platforms. And certainly that is something that people have struggled with. So thank you for that. We are now facing a rise in cyber attacks. Specifically, in this conversation, I want to focus on fraud attacks. And organizations are being both proactive and reactive in their cybersecurity approach. Fraud mitigation capabilities are critical. It's not something that you could think about, it's something that they must do. What pointers can you share with our audience around this?
Yeah, great question. So, look, it's our belief that no business today should go online without some kind of a risk of fraud mitigation system enabled. When it comes to proactive versus reactive fraud mitigation capabilities, I think there are a number of steps organizations could put in place to protect themselves. We'd like to think of this as, think of it from a user journey standpoint, where a user is journeying through a merchant website right from the time that they've logged in, creating an account, what we call the pre-transaction checkpoint. Then the second part is at the point of the transaction actually getting processed. And the third part is like, let's say the transaction has happened, money exchange has happened, goods have been exchanged. Is there some risk and fraud mitigation to be done in that third phase? Happy to get into details if that's something your audience would be interested in.
I think that would be very important because I think that's something that pretty much we all do today. And I like how you're describing the journey of it. People are thinking about, well, if we're logging into secure account, we really don't have to think about the steps. And I think the steps are very important. So please share that with our audience. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let's talk about pre-transaction, right? So this is even before the transaction has been made. Think of this from a user signing up for an account on, say, an e-commerce website. They're logging in, they're adding items to their cart. At every one of these steps, you could do risk and fraud evaluations or checks. You're on the lookout for synthetic fraud, bots masquerading as legitimate users, repeat fraudsters trying to create multiple accounts to exploit some kind of marketing campaign you're running, let's say, just around your holiday season. So all of this is pre-transaction, and there's a lot of stuff that you can catch right out the gate or the early part of the funnel. Step two is during the transaction processing. So as a user, you've decided what you want to buy and you're hitting that checkout button. This is where we arguably run some of our most sophisticated risk mitigation systems and models. We are looking up hundreds of thousands of data points across, the user's transaction attributes, their behavior attributes, a lot of merchant history, what kind of fraud and risk has happened on that merchant's platform. We are harnessing our two-sided network here and combining that with additional signals which we get from the issuers in terms of address verification, card verification checks, and then trying to make an educated decision on whether we need to let this transaction go through or not, right? So how risky is this? Should we ask the merchant to settle this, take the money, give the goods? So that's part two. Part three, which I like calling our post-transaction flow. Look, there's never a perfect risk management system, right? There's always puts and takes. So there's going to be some risk that will still slip through. It doesn't mean that that's a lost cause. There is an opportunity to go in and recover some of that. And so over here, you need to offer merchants the ability to fight and win disputes, stop them from becoming chargebacks, and save them thousands to millions of dollars, depending on the size of the merchant and the scale at which they run. So to me, yeah, very broadly put, these are sort of those three-step process. And you have both proactive and reactive measures that you can instrument at each of these three levels.
I think that was very insightful, certainly highlighting the proactive and reactive pieces at each of these steps. So thank you for sharing that. And now we also talk about the budgets, and budgets have been a struggle for organizations in terms of where to focus their dollars. And when I look at technology and look at security, I think about spending in almost three buckets. A nice to have, which is pretty much anything that would add a layer of security. Hey, that's nice to have, let's put it in the bucket. A good to have would be the next level up. Once we have the extra dollars floating around, we're definitely going to buy that. And the third would be a need to have, which is something we must address now as the need exists and is hurting us both and our customers. There's a pain point, there's either money lost, there's security breaches, there's something going on that we actually need to deal with it right now. So Jayan, can you please shed some light on security budgets, specifically when dealing with mitigating fraud, the need, the want, and the good to have? And how does an organization prioritize spending when there are so many areas of need within the organization?
Great question. And I'd like to answer this a little differently. There's no one size fits all answer to this budget problem. To me, at least in our experience and how we've seen merchants sort of react to thinking about budgets, we've seen that a lot matters on the merchant and where they are in their user journey. So for example, are they a small business coming online for the very first time? Are you a mid-market that has tasted success and you're an aggressive growth path? Or are you a large enterprise that have your own sophisticated risk and fraud tools and teams, and you care about optimizing and moving the needle by a couple of basis points, saving your organization millions of dollars, right? So to me, the size, complexity, and where you are in your journey as a merchant determines the budget and how people think about budgets in the first place. Happy to get into details broken down by these merchant segments if that's of interest.
Certainly at a high level, that would be very useful to share with our audience. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about a business coming online for the very first time. Think of a typical mom and pop store. I mean, it's usually a one-person, two-person operation. They've just about figured out how to accept online payments. And then all of a sudden, their first chargeback comes in. And this is probably the first time they're even like coming face to face with the term chargeback. Hey, what is a dispute? What's a chargeback? Why are there fees associated with it? What you should know is $1 of chargeback is almost equivalent to $3 of revenue, because A, you have shipped goods that you're not going to get back. B, you need to refund the buyer for the chargeback amount. And three, there are fees and fines involved. right? So it's a big blow to a small business that's coming online for the first time. Can be very, very intimidating. And typically these folks the first thing that they think about is, oh my God, like, can I get some liability shift for these chargebacks that happen? So take my money and take care of my problem for me. So they are looking for uh, products like chargeback protection, seller protections, anything that protects them, where at that point of their journey, they just want to be focused on growing their business and not really worry about risk, right? So pay some premium upfront and let somebody else handle this problem. Now let's switch gears. Let's say you've become bigger, you're mid-market tending towards becoming a large merchant. Your sales are through the roof, and now you're looking at optimizing your overall budgets and spend. At this point, you try and look at, hey, I think I know my merchants a little, I know my customers a little better. I think I've seen a lot of risk vectors now that I've been accepting online payments for quite some time period, some period of time. So give me tools that help me mitigate my risk and fraud myself, right? So it needs to be simple enough where I don't need to write lines of code. I don't need to be a data scientist. I just need to go in, toggle a bunch of different configurations, write some basic rules, and I should be able to like sort of use it, set it, forget it till that next risk attack happens or the next seasonality shift is just around the corner, right? So they're looking for small toolkits that are easy to use, easy to manage, easy to change, which they can optimize and control. Now, let's say you're in the big leagues, right? Like the big guns, large enterprise merchants. Risk is a bit of a zero-sum game. What you can gain in catching fraud, you sometimes lose at the cost of friction that you introduce to your good customers. So it's about finding that right balance, right? Like what do you care for? And with really big, large enterprises, they know exactly what to optimize for, when, and for what product categories. So as a large merchant, you probably know your business best, your customers best, and you decide for yourself what your risk tolerance is. So they are looking for, hey, like for anything that is suspicious, I don't want to lose out on it and decline these transactions. Let me send these for manual reviews. And let's have a second pair of eyes looking at this and evaluating this. So for example, you could be a merchant selling designer leather goods, average order values in like say high hundreds, 400, $500. You don't want to lose any good customer because it's a valuable order. So you want systems that allow you to write complex custom strategies, ability to approve, decline, or review stuff, make changes based on holiday seasons around the corner, what's your next big marketing push, and so on.
I'd also like to mention, I think that things that you're also highlighting that are so important is the no one size fits all and having a very flexible solution. I think a lot of security products out there are, okay, just put it in and work the way we work. And I think the thing that you're highlighting also for our audience to really understand is that you understand that everybody's different, they have different needs, it's a flexible system, and you want to work the way that they work, and you're able to do that because of the flexibility within the system, which I think is critical when it comes to a security product actually being secure.
Yeah, I think flexibility and choice are absolutely important. I think you nailed it on the head. There is no one size fits all rule here. Love to talk a little about when you think about budgets overall, right? Like just in terms of the main considerations that we've seen or how we've seen merchants react to it. The cost, I think, is number one in everybody's head, right? Like, hey, does this product pay for itself? They need to think about brand risk as you become big, right? The cost of losing customers because you've had a massive risk attack and the brand reputation hit it causes you. It's difficult to put a value to it, but definitely, can burn up a big company in the long run. If your card network disallows you to on their network as a result of high fraud losses, that can bring a business down overnight, right? And then your OpEx spend, where do you draw the line between automated systems versus having ops teams that are reviewing and doing manual checks and balances, right? So
a mix
the spend part.
Important, yeah, that's very critical.
Yeah, so look, I don't think protecting your organization against fraud doesn't always have to require massive financial and time investments. A lot of time, I think you have partners that have all of these solutions built in. So it's a matter of asking the right questions from existing partners, those in the industry, and again, choice, flexibility, and understanding what works for you, depending on where you are as a merchant in your sort of journey.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you very much, Jayan, for that insight. And I certainly love the way you broke down the different areas within the product, but also within the areas that people really think about and may not have realized where the security has to step in just along the whole pathway. So thank you for that. And it was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thanks, Shira.
Thank you.